Hello team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prabh, and today we're going to discuss about some coffee shot of ISC² Canons. It is a most important topic when you're preparing for CC or CISSP, and it's my responsibility to explain you how this canon works, and we'll also have some coffee shots which give you a lot of clarity about this topic. And after that, I'm sure you will not face any kind of a doubt with this particular topic. So without wasting a time, let's get started with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so let's discuss about the IC² canons. So total we have a 4 canons. Canon is like a law of the IC², and we have a 2 preamble. And canons are very important for you to know, not direct but indirectly, how one practice can breach the canon. And as a IC², when you go for the exams and all, they're expecting you to know these canons, because come on, you're going to become the member, so you should not misuse their laws and all that, because tomorrow no one should question your quality, capability and all that. So first canon is protect society, the commonwealth, infrastructure and all that. That is basically called as a first canon. Second canon is called as a act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, legally. Third canon is called provide diligent, competent service to principal. And fourth canon is called advance and protect the profession. And full short form is PAPA, P-A-P-A, short form is PAPA. Now, when I say about first canon, it's all about preserve the trust, promote the understanding, strengthen the integrity, discourage the unsafe practice, that cover in the canon 1. Second canon talk about act honorably. It means you should tell the truth, make the stakeholder aware, give always a right advice, take care of the objectives. Whenever there's a different laws, regulations are involved, we have to respect the law of the land. Third, provide diligent, competent service to principal. Meaning you have to always preserve the value of the systems, respect the trust, avoid the conflict of interest, and always render only those services on which you are fully competent and qualified. And fourth is called as advance and protect the profession, where you should upgrade yourself, you should attend the training, awareness, you should distribute the training, you do the trainings, you should not distribute the question papers. That is basically part of the fourth canon. We're going to cover in detail all those things, but you need to understand one important element is that there is a sequence for that. Okay, there is a sequence for that. The sequence is, the first canon talk about people, second canon talk about a law, third canon talk about your proof, and fourth canon talk about your profession. How good is your profession? Okay, so that is a one line mnemonics. So people, law, proof and profession, that something is part of a requirement. So let's get started with the first part. So first canon is called protect society, the commonwealth and infrastructure. So here what happened is, when we're talking about protect society, the commonwealth, infrastructure, is you should put people and public infrastructure first. Safety, public, critical infrastructure, responsible disclosure. If these keywords are there, it means we're talking about the first canon. So key behavior is that when you abide with this canon is, you should escalate all the hazard promptly. You should use responsible coordinate disclosure. You should design a system with safety, resiliency in mind, discourage the unsafe practice. That something is part of a thing. So example, like you working as a application security architect for one website or for the company. Now they have a website. Let's say example, they have a website. Now this website is hold a lot of patient data. Based on this website, patient appointments are there. You find one vulnerability in that. Now what you did, you publish the vulnerability on the market, or you have not revealed the information about this vulnerability to anyone. And tomorrow, any hacker hacked this application to the vulnerability, which lead to the people's safety. So that shows your breach of first canon, because the thing which is very critical for the people's safety and all that, you simply ignore that, you hide that. Okay, so that something is, you need to understand. So you should prioritize the human safety, critical infrastructure. That something is part of a requirement. Along with that, you use to report the incident as early as possible. So if you follow this canon, you reduce the public harm, higher trust with the regulator, customers. And if you violate, then safety incidents, regulatory sanctions, civil criminal exposure, reputational damage, disciplinary action possible is there. So do is that you discover the critical flaw in the hospital monitoring system, you contain the risk, you preserve the evidence and notify the vendor regulators with required window. You should not do that. You suppress the safety impact breaches to protect the brand value A patient is harmed, investigation find you delayed disclosure. That something is part of the function. Second canon is called act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally. Okay, so as I said, you need to respect the law. We just discussed respect the law. Now in this section, we always talk about, you should always tell the truth. You should always tell the truth. Be truthful, inform affected parties. Like, you should not create a fear, uncertainty, doubt. You should respect the contract. You should treat all the constituent fairly. Always give advice. Take care of all the objectives. Whenever any resolving issues happen of different law, if any law conflict happen, follow the law where you're performing a work. Okay, all those things is part of a requirement. So key behavior is accurate, timely reporting, no sugarcoating, no fear, no uncertainty. Oh, this website has got hacked. You will lose this, you will lose that. So you should not create any fear. Okay, so you should have a proper authorization. If you're doing a pen testing without authorization, it's against the law. You should be honorable. You should be honest. Example, like you're doing a VAPT. Let's say example. Now in the VAPT, there's no permission. You simply went for VAPT. So it is against the second canon. You're not doing this legally. There's no bug bounty program, but you're simply hacking that. You're sharing that data with other vendors. So manager action is accurate reporting, lawful processing, disclose conflict, obtain the authorization for test. And evidence should be here is signed ROE. Okay, the rule of engagement, legal review, audit trails, document the conflicts and mitigation. That something is part of a requirement. So if you follow this, you can have auditable, legal defensible, stakeholder trust, and you can have a few disputes. If you don't do that, there is a contract breach, fine, litigation, loss of license, interdisciplinary actions, and all that. So what is the best practice is that audit find a critical control gap before a board meeting. So you report it fully with impact and remediation plan. That shows you are honorable, honest, and responsible. Don't do that. Boss asks you to omit a severe risk from a report to avoid panic, and you comply and later breach occur and your omission is discoverable. So that is something you should not do that. Is it clear? So that is the second canon we have. It means overall you should be honest. Third is called as a provide diligent, competent service to principal. In one line, do the work properly and prove it with evidence. Example, like you pass the audit. You done that and you prove by showing the evidence. So what you do is you implement the control, monitor them, collect the logs, report the fix, bring expertise that reflect your expertise. Okay, so you're doing a risk-based planning, you know your limits, you respect the trust. Now problem is that someone has trusted you and given you task. Now you misuse the trust. You're working in the morning for the company, in the evening you're working for someone else. Okay, so that something is basically called as a conflict of interest. That should not do that. Because here you protect and maintain the worth of asset you're responsible for. You respect the trust and privilege they granted you. Example, we given you a system administrator permission. So we have granted you access. You should not misuse that. You should tell about the clearer situations. Okay, my wife is joining this company. She's from vendor management. So it will be conflict of interest. Is it clear? And never say yes to everything. You're not good with that, but you still accept the work only when true. So here what happened is you're not qualified for that, but you still accept that. So manager action is risk-based plan, operate control, produce evidence. We look for the expertise. That's how we can demonstrate our diligence, competent services principle. And how can we prove that? By showing them test results, access review, DR drills, plan of action, milestones, qualifications, and all that. So that something is part of a requirement. So any question around, like policy say encrypt data. So you run a coverage report, rotate keys, track exception, all those things part of your third canon. So if you'd follow this, we can measure the security posture, audit pass with evidence, fear incident losses that reflect that you have a proof that you have a diligent competency. Negligence in a claim, failed audit, recurring incidents in your premises, in your presence, it's a breach of the third canon. So policy amended encryption. So your team run a coverage report, rotate keys, remediations, all thing has been done. On the other side, we have a don't, like policy. When you're talking about the policy part, so policy exists but no monitoring or evidence. During an audit, you cannot prove coverage, rotation, and that's a classic failure of due diligence. Let's move to the fourth canon. Maintain your skill, mentor ethically, share knowledge. So that is called advance and protect the profession. I will give you 3 statements. Keep your skill current, act with integrity, and lift others. I repeat again, keep your skill current. That's the first important criteria. Second is act with integrity. And third is basically lift others. Is it clear? So example, like in CISSP, once you clear the exam, you need to maintain 120 CP points. That itself says that advance and protect the profession. It means post training, you need to upgrade your knowledge. Post certification, you need to upgrade your knowledge. You're attending a webinar, seminar that demonstrate your skills. You went somewhere giving a seminar, you publish a white papers. That shows the advance and protect the profession, like continuous learning, sponsoring the qualified professionals, fact-based, non-malicious criticism, use formal complaint process when needed. So mentorship, responsible publication ethics and all that. You went to the exam and you're publishing those question paper outside. You went to the exam, you're revealing the questions outside, you sharing the copyright materials. That basically demonstrate the evidence of lack of advance and protect the profession. Okay, like example, evidence of the training logs, mentorship records, professional conduct documentation. These are basically part of this canon. Okay, if you follow this, strong talent pipeline, better community standard, improve the trust. If you don't do that, erosion of professional reputations, potential ethics, or complaint against you is possible. So you mentor junior, publish hardening guides, file document ethics, all are part of a do. You publicly smear appear without evidence. You keep partnering with vendor known for his unethical testing. That is basically part of the breach. So any question talking about mentor, sponsor, maintain competence, avoid unethical association, don't injure reputation without evidence. That is basically part of advance and protect the profession. Or let's say example, you see a consultant falsifying a result. So you document report via formal channel. That shows that you align with the canon. So I have some important tips that you can follow, which can be very useful for you. Okay, let's get started that part. Now, if you can see here, the first thing is that client pressure versus public risk. Definitely Canon 1 win. We need to have a safety before NDA or PR. Do it quickly versus lawful authorization. Canon 2 legitly over the speed, because we cannot hurry do that. We have to follow the lawful authorization, report the thing. Let's say example, system is infected with the virus. Definitely isolate a system and parallelly we have to notify. Taking work outside the competence, it's a violate of Canon 2 and 3. Primarily it is for the 3 because it is a conflict of interest. Skipping the evidence to hit dates, it's violate the Canon 3. Okay, simply you skip the task. You have been capable for that, you skip the things. Public shaming appears, violate the 4. That something is part of the function. Now, micro cues is approve, mandate, accept the risk, which part of a 1 and 2. Implement, monitor evidence, that shows your Canon 3. Disclose, notify regulator, that reflect your Canon 1 and Canon 2. Mentor, report misconduct, that report your Canon 4. So that something is part of a function. So any question talking on public safety, harm to people, legal penalty, Canon 1. Truth plus legality plus fairness, that comes under the level 2. Canon 2, which called breach of contract, fraud, misrepresentations and all that. Do and prove anything about prove and anything going against what you proved, negligence, failed audit, repeat incidents, that is basically called as a Canon 3. Uplift the professions, that basically called as a Canon 4. Which talk about people, law, proof and profession. So people is for first canon, law for the second. Third is a proof that you're doing well, and profession is you upgrading your stuff. So let's discuss with the question. A hospital discover an exploitable flaw in a live patient monitoring system. A regulatory clock is 72 hours for safety incidents. Legal warrant disclosure may violate the vendor NDA. What is the best action? See, if you option A, wait for the vendor written permission to avoid the NDA breach. See, if you're talking about this, canon hierarchy decide people safety will be the first, right? Agree? People safety will first, because here the keyword we're talking about is what? The keyword is talking about safety. The keyword is talking people safety. So if you basically go by the A, wait for the vendor written permission to avoid NDA breach. Okay, NDA is a private contract. It does not override the law or public safety. And what is the risk is if you delay past 72 hours, it lead to the regulatory non-compliance, continue the patient risk and all that. It is also lead to the conflict of prioritizing a contract convenience over the Canon 1 safety and Canon 2 legal obligation. That's the reason A is eliminated. B say quietly hotfix in 2 weeks to prevent the public alarm. See, this misses the clock of 2 weeks, which is more than 72 hours and late, and it become a non-compliant. From unsafe perspective, silent patching without notifying prolonged exposure. If harm occur, negligence can be a big impact. And delay risk reduction and truthful reporting also breach of Canon 1 and Canon 2. So that is removed. D, publish detail of social media to warn the public. Again, you're creating a fear. Publicly weaponize the flaw before mitigation exists can increase the exploitation of risk. And it is also legal ethical issue because it may expose the protected information or violate the clinical privacy or communication policy. So it violates your Canon 2 and can also harm the Canon 1. That's the reason answer is basically C for Charlie. C for Charlie. Give me a second. C for Charlie. Notify the regulator vendor via coordinate disclosure and contain and preserve the evidence, because by this you outrank all the other, because there's a live flaw in the patient monitoring system, safety of life. So you must act to reduce the harm now. Second is required lawful timely notification, truthful reporting. So in 72 hours you notify that. So containment action to reduce the immediate risk to the patient, that's safety first, and notify the regulator within a deadline with the fact you stand behind, that cover your second canon. That's the reason answer is C for Charlie. Let's go by the C for Charlie. Okay, let's go by the second question. Second question is also very interesting. A client requests a red team test next week in a country where you lack legal authorization to conduct intrusive testing. What is the primary action? See, if you go by A, proceed with the client email consent. Proceed with the client email consent, see, not legally sufficient. An email from a single stakeholder often does not bind all the asset owner or provider or state where the system resides. So many jurisdictions require a specific formal authorization, and some activity remain illegal even with a private consent. So it's a violation of Canon 2, which is called legally responsibility, and also weak the ROE, rule of engagement, for the Canon 3, which is a failure of due diligence. Route the attack from the third country to bypass a local law. If you go by the B option, so this is like a target jurisdiction still apply. So attacking from elsewhere can add the offense. Okay, and this is deliberately evasion the breach of Canon 2. Hire an unknown local freelancer to do under your name. Again, it's about due diligence failure. No assurance they will follow ROA, no control over the lawful or evidence handling, and also breach of Canon 4 because associating with the potentially unethical practice damage the profession and you remain liable as a principal. So this is both Canon 2 and Canon 3 compliant. That's the reason we're going with the answer D. Obtain the authorization in the jurisdiction or decline. So in this way, you act honorably, honestly, you must operate lawfully, and it also provide diligent competent service to principal because you include the lawful ROE, correct authorization, and documented approval. That's the reason answer is D for Delta. D for Delta. Now, next go for the next question. You awarded a payment crypto project, but your team lack HSM key lifecycle expertise. Go live is in 30 days. What is the best course of action? Again, A, talking about accept scope, learn from the job. So learn on the job risk is a non-compliant crypto HSM design and it violates the Canon 3. Disclose the gap, add the qualified crypto specialist, adjust the plan. That is also true. Okay, because it's a very good practice because it shows your Canon 3 and Canon 2. Okay, so honesty is there. Now, if you take an example of outsource secretly and claim full authorship, see, secretly outsourcing misrepresent the capability of a Canon 2 and losses control of ROE evidence and add legal qualifier risk. Decline the project and recommend the competitor without explanation. It falls under the diligently service, which is called Canon 3 by not disclosing the gap or all that. So that's the reason answer is B for beta. Disclose the gap, add the qualified crypto specialist and adjust the plan. That reflect your Canon 3 and Canon 2. That's the reason answer is B for beta. Let's go by the next question. A well-known blogger falsely accused your team of fabricating a pentest results. What is the most appropriate action per Canon? Option A, post the scathing rebuttal attacking a blogger, which is true. It violates the Canon 4 by injuring a reputation. Ignore it, responding draw attention. Again, it abdicate the Canon 4 duty to protect the profession and let misinformation stand unchallenged. Option C, file a documentation complaint via formal channel, publish a factual clarification. That's true. Okay, because it talk about your Canon 2 and 4, truthful, evidence-based and proper channel. Threaten immediate legal action, social media. Again, it violate the 2 and 4. Recklessly, not responsible, fact-based function we have. So that's the reason answer is C for Charlie. C for Charlie. It protect the profession with evidence and proper access. It also balanced by Canon 2 because truthful and responsible, and that's something part of a function. That's the reason answer is C for Charlie. Let's go by the next question. A CISSP discover a senior colleague, also a CISSP, using unlicensed software for a project in a clear violation of copyright law and company policy. Senior colleague dismissed this concern when confronted. CISSP decided not to escalate the issue to management of IC2, wanting to avoid the confrontation. Which canon of IC2 Code of Ethics has the CISSP most directly violated? It's a very good question. Option A, Canon 1, protect society, the common good, necessary public trust. See, A and C are less direct because while using unlicensed software is a risk to the company. The most direct ethical lapse described in the failure is uphold the professional code of conduct. So A removed. B say act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly. This is a very close option, but by not reporting an illegal act, and one should argue the CISSP not acting responsibly legally. However, the person actively committing an illegal act and is a senior colleague, and that discovering CISSP most direct explicit ethical failure as defined by the IC2 as a failure to report. Option C, Canon 3, provide diligent competent service to principal. That is also true. Okay, but that is again a part of a requirement. D, advance and protect the profession. Exactly. So according to CISSP CBK, advancing and protecting the profession is a responsibility to report the ethical breach by fellow members. And CBK also state that any member who observe another member breaching a code of ethics follow the published ethics complaint procedure. And if you fail to do that, it's considered as a breach of Canon 4. So CISSP primary failure was decision not to report the violation, which is a direct breach on the duty of the profession itself. That's the reason answer is D for Delta. Do let me know how do you find this video, and do let me know in the comment box what is the next video should I make on this topic. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos on a similar topic. Good day. Bye.